Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. I am Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins, the senior minister here at Sunshine Cathedral.
I am Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, the executive minister. Faith and religion can be complicated for the LGBTQ+ community. Surveys show that evangelical faith is the justification for the greatest attacks on the LGBTQ+ community.
I am Reverend Kevin Tisdall, the Minister of Education. The Queer God Squad is going to explore our religious community. Let's explore the big news of the day and what it means to you. This is live, and then we are available on demand. We are available on all smart televisions and your favorite social media.
Surveys show that religious faith and church are the main causes of trauma in the LGBTQ+ community. At Sunshine Cathedral, we're here to tell you that you're God's miracle, not God's mistake. This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. The census in the UK reveals high proportions of LGBTQ+ individuals in minority religions. The latest census data from England and Wales have revealed intriguing insights into the intersection of religion and sexual orientation. According to the 2021 census, followers of smaller religions were found to have the highest proportions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, or other minority sexuality, LGBTQ+ individuals. Among these diverse faiths, Norse Heathenry, that's not disparaging, that's what they call themselves. Norse Heathenry, a spiritual movement under the umbrella of paganism, has attracted individuals like 30-year-old Sif, who was once a staunch atheist. Sif describes her journey into Norse Heathenry as deeply personal, allowing individuals to select beliefs that resonate with them personally. The census marked the first time residents aged 16 and over were asked voluntary questions on sexual orientation and gender identity, revealing that, quote, other religions, end quote, had the highest percentage of LGB+ individuals at almost 15%, 14.8%, and trans people at almost 3%, 2.9%. In fact, the number of LGBTQ+ individuals within these other religions surpassed the combined LGBTQ+ followers of Islam and Sikhism. Data also showed that Buddhism and Judaism had higher proportions of both LGBT+ and trans followers. Dr. Jonathan Boyd from the Institute for Jewish Policy Research suggests that the relatively high rates of LGBTQ+ identification among Jews could be attributed to the diversity within the Jewish community, particularly among those of mixed or multiple ethnic groups. These findings shed light on the complex relationship between religion, sexuality, and identity, underscoring the diverse paths individuals navigate in their pursuit of faith and understanding. It just occurs to me that spirituality is a real experience, that there's an anthropology to it. There may be a psychology to it, but there is something spiritual, and we get at it through art or poetry or religion or myth or sex or nature or science. We get to it in lots of different ways, but there is something that's about meaning making that's just real in our experience, or at least our desire for it is real. And that it's so innate and so inexhaustible and indefatigable that people will find a way to explore it. And so if you're not welcome in the big churches or whatever, in the historic denominations, that doesn't mean your spiritual search is over. People have found a lot of spiritual richness and healing in 12-step programs. People talk about the arts sometimes almost like it's a faith in and of itself. Some people talk about romance in a way that it's more than just physical attraction or comfort with another person. So these spiritual pursuits need to happen, will happen. So I'm not surprised that people find in paganism or in non-Christian religions a path, because we're looking for a path. And so those that are going to offer it, that's a safe place to explore it. Well, why not? I don't know about Sikhism and Islam combined, because I would think Sikhism, which is such a peaceful religion and sort of a progressive faith, I don't know what their stance is on LGBTQ+. I would assume it's probably not terrible. I don't know. Islam, like Christianity, has a checkered past with LGBTQ+. Buddhism, you might live a life as a man and a life as a woman. So it doesn't, since you can be either or both over time, and you don't really even have an individual soul, we're just part of one big thing in Buddhism. I don't think that being gay is a big deal in most Buddhist communities. They do, their code of ethics does say that you should be sexually responsible. And so for a lot of people that might mean celibacy or monogamy, but for some people it just means, being honest, being caring with your partner, being, not putting your partner at unnecessary risk or whatever. So there is a sexual ethic, but since there isn't a you that is male or female, and you can experience life as either and will do both over time, over the eons, I can't imagine that homosexual orientation is a big deal for modern Buddhists. In a lot of Native American cultures, until they were sort of colonized by Christian missionary work, but before that, a lot of indigenous cultures were very supportive of sexual and gender diversity.
Right.
And and apparently these Celtic and Northern and Norse, and maybe even Egyptian pagan paths, sort of cults and paths offer it too. Judaism is rooted in diaspora and suffering and injustice and trying to stay together and keep the tradition alive no matter what happens. So I would imagine a lot of them would be sympathetic to LGBTQ concerns because they share similar experiences. So I'm not surprised that these non-Christian paths are attracting LGBTQ plus people, because spirituality is innate. We are going to search, and the places we're allowed to search make sense as the ones you would start with. So good on those that made the search possible. And Christianity, wake up. Because people need a spiritual component in their life, but they don't need to be judged for it. They don't need to be hated about it. It doesn't have to be your path. They're going to find one, and it doesn't have to be yours. So maybe wake up to that and just be a little nicer to people. Maybe they'll choose your path after all.
Yeah, I think one of my takeaways from this particular story is that it is about spiritual journey, individual spiritual journey. And people, I think once we find that moment where we can say, this works, this doesn't work, let me find a path that works for me, it will lead you to where you need to be. And that's necessarily an organized religion. I'm always wonderfully pleasant when I hear people say, I'm more spiritual than I am religious, because that speaks to me a whole lot more, because that means you've done some work around your own spirituality, and you know what feeds you, you know what does not feed you. If you can find just as much of what you need in community, sitting on the beach watching the sunrise, versus being in the bricks and mortar, then that's what you need. You go for it. Some people like a little bit of dabble of all of it. But I think the important thing for me from this story is that is to find what works for you, and follow your own path. Be true to your own self, because if you're not happy, nobody else is going to be happy.
I remember reading a study early in the 2000s where this scientist claimed that they are able to show that we as humans are hardwired to be spiritual. Now, what that means for each of us is something else, but when you start thinking about, well, there may be something within me that attaches me to a greater self, then it's a wonderful thing. And as we look throughout the globe, as we look throughout time, most societies have some type of belief system, whether it is a belief in a god or many gods, or a belief in the individual as they learn to discover who they are. I think that we are all empowered and should look into ourselves to see what works for us. And I think that's the secret. Nobody has a specific winning formula as to what we're supposed to be, who we're supposed to be, and how we're supposed to get there. For me, it's the journey. Finding myself and learning more about myself. So when people say that other religions are where they're going, good for them. Find out who you are.
You didn't give up.
Find out what works for you and live your true self.
Yeah.
Amen.
There's a what religion is vocabulary. Religion is a language. It's a language. And so we're all looking for what is good. Some of us call that God, some of us call it gods, multiple. We're looking for something good. We're looking for connection to it. Is it within us? Are we in it? Or is it out there, but we can access it? Or, of course, in my theology, it's everywhere. It's omnipresence. There is omnipresent good, or goodness, or love. And that's what is divine. And it's the energy between the atoms. It's the energy between the stars and the planets. It's the energy between the beats of my heart. And it's just everywhere. But other people have other ideas about it. And so religion gives us the vocabulary to talk about these things. What is this good that I'm seeking? How am I connected to it? How can it benefit my loved ones? How, if we cooperate with it, can we have more peace or joy or stability in our lives or in our world? And religion gives us the vocabulary. Well, you pray to the fairies and you leave them little offerings and they'll come to your aid. And we don't have to take any of that literally, or we can. But it just gives us a way to talk about it. So we're on the same page about stuff and we can compare notes. So religion is vocabulary. Spirituality is what that vocabulary is talking about. And so, and as long as we don't get that mixed up, if this vocabulary doesn't work for you, you'll find another one.
Exactly.
For your spiritual search. And so what I read in this survey in the UK from the Census is that the Christian vocabulary was not helpful to some people, but they weren't willing to give up on the search. So they developed a new vocabulary, Norse Heathenism or Judaism or Buddhism. They just picked another vocabulary to talk about their spiritual journey, and I'm here for it.
Yes.
Find your voice, find your vocabulary, find your language, but don't give up on the search. The search is almost more important than whatever you find. Yeah. So you use your language, pick your language. You can't get it wrong. Well, that's today with the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's largest progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together, and we are all in this together. Remember that.
You are God's miracle, not God's mistake. Until the next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.